Hello, and welcome to a quick look at Humankind. I hope you're all well and supporting each other during these wild times. This month we've been raising awareness over on Twitch for Black Lives Matter and the LGBTQ+ community, so if you'd like to know more or to support these amazing causes, I've popped a link to various charities in the video description below. So, Humankind is an upcoming 4X game developed by Amplitude Studios and published by Sega. I was incredibly lucky to be invited to a closed-door play session for a hands-on experience, and in this video I'm going to be sharing my thoughts on the game and a brief rundown of gameplay using footage provided. What is 4X, I hear you ask? At the heart of it, it's a genre of games based on the building of a civilization, usually with one or more win conditions. Obviously, Civilization is the big franchise in 4X if you hadn't already guessed. Humankind uses just a single score system for its games versus the Civ method of having multiple ways. However, in order to get there, you must still wisely utilise science, food, industry, money, and more to advance through historical eras. Humankind also brings a twist to the party by giving you the ability to select different iconic civilizations of the past as you advance through history. This is something different from other titles, which usually let you choose one civilization or faction and stick with it for the entire game. In switching this style from one civilization to another as you advance through 6 historical eras, you gain the ability to swap unique buffs, units, and buildings that suit your expanding territories and changing situations. The developers say it will create a level playing field, that it should help prevent the snowballing issue that can occur in 4X games, and give the underdog a chance to catch up by changing strategy on the fly. Alongside different historical civilizations, we can expect famous people, buildings, and events to show up. Obviously, these will be affected by your choices of civilization as you advance through eras and build upon your foundations. So, in theory, each play session could be very different. It is worth noting that the game is still in development, so some features like religion are yet to be added, and others are yet to be finalised, such as fighting mechanics and battles. The pandemic has unfortunately affected development, which is a common story across the industry, so Amplitude have very sensibly pushed the game back to 2021 in order to make sure that it's the game that they want to put out. So please do not take this video or the features shown within it as representative of the final game. This is early alpha stage. Instead, I hope this at least shows you a little glimpse of the kind of things to expect from Humankind when it does come out in 2021. Gameplay starts in the Neolithic era as a tribe of nomads. Players must explore the map and collect points to grow their population, pick their first civilization, and settle their first city. You could do this by either growing your tribe's population with food or by finding and cultivating knowledge pickups from around the map. Once you've hit the right amount, you're ready to choose your first historical culture. In the final game, there will be 6 eras of history to advance through and 10 choices of civs per era, with specialisations in industrialism, expansion, science, agriculture, or the military. Each has a unique unit, an emblematic building, and a specialisation related bonus buff, and by utilising these correctly, players can advance through the ages. Let's quickly look at an example. These are the Harappans. They were a Bronze Age civilization from the Indus Valley, which is in modern-day Pakistan. They were the 3rd major player of the age, alongside Mesopotamia and Egypt, although unfortunately we don't know as much about them as the other two, as the British damaged quite a lot of the sites under colonial rule and dismantled many buildings to reuse for railroads. What we do know is that they're a culture based on agricultural production and commerce, so it does make sense that they have food and production related bonuses that utilise rivers, they have canal networks as their emblematic buildings, and all of that boosts that production of food further. For their unique unit, they have runners, which take a similar role to scouts or light infantry, as the Harappans weren't really known for having a standing army in the same way as, for example, the Mycenaeans. In this build, only 4 of the ancient eras are on show: the Egyptians, industry; Babylonians, science; Harappans, agriculture and food; and the Mycenaeans. We're going to be going with the Babylonians for the first era, so science is going to be our focus, along with a specialised unit and a boost to science based on expansion. We also get science and food bonuses from our emblematic building, the Astronomy House. You've got 2 things you need to keep an eye on and work towards in the game: your fame score and your era stars. Your fame score, that's this one, is persistent through eras and is the score that determines the winner, but era stars are the way to both build this score and progress within the game. These are filled in by completing various challenges and deeds that could be specific to the civ you're playing, or more generic. For example, build an army of 3 or more units, or earn a certain amount of money. Era stars can also provide fame points if you collect a certain amount for a set bonus, so it's definitely worth looking through all of this screen as and when you change eras so you can plan accordingly. With our choice of Babylon in mind, let's have a look for somewhere to settle. Cities work a group of hexagonal tiles around the centre tiles, so we want ideally a good yield of industry and food on those surrounding tiles to grow out from and feed our city. Resources are available on the map to exploit, both strategic items, which are silver icons, and luxury items, which are goldy bronze icons, and they give extra food, science, industry, or money. There's also natural wonders dotted around the map for you to exploit by settling nearby. If you do find them first, you can also get a few extra fame points. They're still worth going after though if you don't grab this, because they provide several benefits if they're in your territory, including better vision of the map and also a boost to your income every turn. Money is important, and it's used for expanding your territory further via creating extensions of your existing city or outposts, which can then be turned into new cities at a cost. You can also use this to instantly develop buildings or units in your build queue, but that is probably a little bit more late game when you've got established territory and a reliable income. It's also worth noting, although it's still being worked on, that there is a stability element to the game, and the more cities you have, the more you'll have to pay attention to that. As we were only playing early game, it wasn't something that made itself known, so I'm not confident in going into detail on that. As the turns pass, you'll be able to place more adjacent structures to your city centres to improve the bonuses that you're working. You can see we've just placed a trades quarter, which will boost industry, but we're also working this salt tile. We can build additional resource exploitations on top of the tile to boost the output further. We do need the prerequisite technology that I mentioned earlier, which we may not immediately have, so that's partly where the science is going to go. But once we've done that, the icon will change to a blue colour, and we will get an additional bonus to working that tile. Building world wonders in your city can also provide huge benefits to the person who manages to grab them. What I really liked about Humankind and the way they did this feature was the race to build them wasn't just everyone rushing to physically build it. You kind of fight for the right to reserve the world wonder of your choice. No one else can build that world wonder once you've reserved it, so you can take your time, and if you're too slow, you may get no world wonders that era. Humankind does have a civics tree, which is more like a cone, and it presents you with choices as you age through the years, depending on how you're getting along in the game. Some of these choices are permanent and represented in the form of a variety of sliders. Some are short boosts to various productions, as shown here. The example on the screen right now is about hunting animals for meat. Should we use the rest of the animal to feed the people and boost growth for 10 turns? Exchange the fur and horns for more money? Or give them to the army to equip soldiers better, which boosts unit production? How you handle all of this will affect how you're seen to other world leaders. More information to come from Amplitude down the line on diplomacy and so forth. As I said before, it's an early build, so in-depth mechanics for AI are still being worked on. In terms of soundtrack and art, it's exactly what you would expect and want from a 4X game. The theme is brilliant. It's been underlying this whole video. It's great. I'll pop a link to an orchestral version in the video description. I'm also enjoying the slightly painted vibe that the graphics give off, and I am very impressed with how the game ran and looked for an alpha build, especially as it was running on my home machine. One thing I do want to point out that I really liked is how each era's emblematic buildings persist through eras, unlike other games which generally overwrite the models with the newer ones as you go. So not only will your choices and deeds be reflected in your civics, but also within the very fabric of the cities themselves, as well as world wonders hopefully being dotted around the landscape, assuming you manage to grab some. This leads to some potentially very funky but exciting city builds visually within the game, and I am looking forward to seeing this in the final version. Obviously, I do have to address the elephant in the Sid Meier room. It would look weird if I didn't. How close is it to the Civilization franchise? Considering Civ basically founded the entire genre, we do have to recognise they are similar in concept, but this is a very different beast that converged off from the timeline several years ago, and despite its similarities to playstyle and mechanics, it does play very differently even in the first 60 turns. I love Civ to bits, but I will admit it can be very daunting for a new player to get into, and Humankind does feel more accessible, which means that's good news for all 4X games. Why? Because more players trying out Humankind means more people trying out other 4X games, which means more money for devs, which hopefully means more games down the line, and everybody wins, and that is a very good thing. So that's it, a quick look at Humankind. If you've enjoyed this video, please consider giving it a like. The final thing I need to do is say a huge thank you to my supporters over at Patreon, who help support the creation of my content over here on YouTube. And an extra special thank you to Rachel, Jaspis Ohanpal, Flying Boomkin, Liam Hall, Lottie Pierce, Nate Aguilar, Liam Pillsbury, Lars Eric, Mark Fillan and Maid. If you've enjoyed this video and you want to support the channel, please check the video description for a link. Don't forget there's also some courses I mentioned at the start down there too, and I'll put those links in for more information on Humankind. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye!